How am I doing? How are we doing? How are you doing? So this week is a special video. No edits. Last week there wasn't a video. And so this video just gonna try to cover two things. What? Why? Well, why these videos are happening. Why it is that there's information and data shared that allows it to manifest this way. And what's going on, a high level overview of what's going on and what's going to happen. So what's going to happen is there's a lot more content. There's a lot more. And what's been going on so far is thought and expression manifest here, allowed to be understood and learned and shared in this way. And so the style of the videos, as far as what's been going on, the style of the videos is, well, just imagine if you had walked into my place, our place, and there was a thought bubble up here. And as I was thinking and thinking out loud, you could see the thought bubble. And then basically taking what's going on in that thought bubble and transmuting it into video format. That's what's been going on. And why that's happening? Well, because we're in a human vessel that's been allowed to do that. And that's the reason for it. And so why is it videos? Well, because it is. You think back in the day, what did they have? Papyrus, ink. So we have internet. So that's why, and that's what's. And this video is a special video because it's also in response to last week, but as you can see, I'm not in a button up today. Comfortable. The feet are up. There's going to be no edits because this video is for the me, us. Well, what does that mean? It means for the most part, up until today, really, the videos were structured in a way as if we were kind of removed from the experiencing of it and only experiencing the sharing of it. And so to make this video for the me, us, I really need that. We really need that. And then it becomes just as much for you. And then I ask myself, well, how's that the case? You know, even before these videos started to manifest on YouTube, it takes a lot. It's taken a lot. It takes a lot out of you. We all have lives. We're all busy. For example, hours and hours, countless hours, researching, studying, praying, meditating, researching again, scripting, sometimes editing, most of the time, post editing, thumbnail creating, all this time that goes into making the video. And then you just hope someone watches it. We just hope you watch it. And you people, us, we're so busy that most people haven't even watched. It's an example of how busy we are. And so to put that in retrospect, to then be the person on the creative development and production side, takes a lot out of you. And so until the sustainability is something else, well, this is a healthy balance. I'm just going to be comfortable in this video and talk about how or what's and why. So usually, especially the last few videos have been anywhere from 5 to 7 minutes. We'll keep it around, 6 to 8 minutes, maybe 10. So we're at a 5-minute mark. So coming back from the thought bubble that you might see if you were here, experiencing all this information and activated knowledge in a thought bubble, and you'd be seeing out loud, well, we're going to start transitioning from that, right? It's as simple as, well, how do you transition from that into a conversation where you're thinking about something, and then you think out loud, and then maybe you think out loud and you write it down, and then maybe you think out loud and you write it down, and then you make a video about it in a way that's still one-way communication, right? So we want to make it two-way. So we're going from thought bubble, walking into someone, myself in this context. Oh, look, that's all their stuff they're thinking. And now in this video, it's, as if you were to walk into this recording space and we're just doing it live. And then as we go from there, the next thing would be live, right? Live video. And as we go from there, that's just thinking out loud, right? You're actually there hearing someone, experiencing someone thinking out loud. And then from there, after a live video, then it's, conversation live. And that might be, me and a guest or a guest here. And then maybe going somewhere. In fact, going somewhere. And having a conversation. One-on-one, and then maybe one-on-two, and then two-on-one, or one-on-one-on-one, and expanding from there. So that's what's going to happen as far as after this style of video experience. And like I said, there's a lot of content. A lot of content. For example, I have several books that are just marked up, tons of notes and YouTube titles. And we have a layout, a creative layout, chapters. There's a lot of stuff to come out. And, it's been more than 90 days now. This was supposed to only be a 90-day series, Beyond Faith Within Reason, because we thought we could explain it enough in 90 days with one video a week. It's just one chapter. Everything since that first video, Form Within Forms, right? Beyond Faith Within Reason, Part 1, the 20-minute video, up until now, it's still one chapter. It's still one chapter, and there's a lot of chapters. So I think we'll be able to move on to the next chapter soon. And recapping this past chapter, as you saw in the last video summarized so much of what we've covered. It summarized the similar patterns of relevant information. It summarized the similar patterns of theological, scientific, Gnostic information. And then also included relevant psychology and myth, and 3 main points, right? We're always focusing on this triangle, 3 points. Why 3 points? Well, here we are. We're summarizing it as we go on to the next chapter. Because if you just have a dot, right? A dot just, it's a navigational point, right? Boop. You can't connect the dots with one dot. And then if you have 2 dots, you have a navigational route to and fro. Right? Now, if you have 3 dots, that's the minimum amount of dots required to map a space, shape, concept, thinking. That's the minimum amount of required dots. So then you get a shape. And we started talking about this shape in terms of just it being balanced, equilateral, the angles being of the same measure for the sake of continuing the conversation. And then we started to say, okay, now let's look at those 3 points as a manifestation of several, one of many, but several things: how we think, how we exist in the body, how we exist in the world, or our own little world in a smaller space. And then in the last video, it was, now let's tile this concept together. And it was click, 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 right? You tiled it. And in that clip, it was like, well, what happens if one tile is off? So you can see now how we're getting towards the end of the chapter, which is now we have a single shape that connects so many forms of existence, so many forms of thinking, so many forms of recalling thinking, so many forms of existing information that can be recalled or activated or allowed to you. And, you know, hearing myself talk about it now, it still sounds and experiences, and the experience of hearing it still kind of manifests a 2-dimensional shape. And so you can say that's the bigger objective, which is going from 1D to 2 dimensions, to 3 dimensions, to 4 dimensions. Because why? Just like the nature of the conversation, thinking silently, thinking out loud, thinking live, recording it, sharing, recording, then being live, then having a conversation, sharing that. That's the evolution of information and interacting, right? And so then you can say it's the same with the evolution of 3 points: 1 point to 2 point to 3 points in 2-dimensional space, just a single triangle. And then more of those, tiling it on a plane of existence and mapping the terrain of existence, mapping the terrain of how we think, mapping the terrain of polarities fusing together, up and down, left and right, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, dark, light, good and evil, and how they all start to tile up, right? And so, can you imagine what it's going to be like in the next chapter, which will be a 3-dimensional space? We're like really diving into it. We touched on it a little bit, but in a single dimension, just one triangle point. You know, think about it as a single human body, to finish up, as one triangle point. You have a single brain, one triangle point, right? And then a form of a message or message sent, and one triangle point. And you're trying to map those together. And that's just you, right? That's just you. And then going into 3D, which means multiple yous, or multiple us, or multiple us, and how that maps together on a plane of existence. And then, well, as above, there is below, right? As there's sun, there's night. There's ground, there's flight. So all these triangles you map on a plane, it's like you think you got it figured out, maybe, but then there's a whole nother plane, right? There's the underside. Or if you've mapped out the underside first, then there's the top side. And that starts to get into 3D. And so once we go into the next chapter, it'll be 3D. And then the 4th D would be, you know, all those triangles that you map out like that, or whether on the top side or the bottom side. Well, then you open it up. Open up one, whether it's yourself or others, or you open up the triangle, the mapped spaces of information of a book, of another person, of yourself, of how you see the future, of how you see the past, and then how that aligns with maybe one other person in your home or family, and then house, and maybe city, block, state, country, world, and you go from there. And so, last thing I want to share about summarizing all of this is touching once more on the why and the what's going on. The why, right? We're in a vessel where that's the purpose and the reason. And what's going on, it's not just a recognition of patterns and sharing it. Like Carl Jung did that very, very well. And then relived and reshared through Jordan Peterson, which just sprang up like a well. And it's not just coincidence that it had such an impact. And so we recognize the patterns. We recognize the patterns in clinical psychology. We recognize the patterns in sacred information that substantiated itself. But we also recognize the patterns in the math and sciences, the spaces and the astrological sciences as well, in relation to, well, right now, how it was and how it will be. And we've been allowed to be very special and different in that way. Cool. So if you got this far in the video, thank you. I appreciate it. If you like what we're doing, if you like what I'm doing, if you like what we're doing, what the us is doing for who it is, if you wouldn't mind, let yourself know that you like it. Click it. And if at any point in time there was something that you didn't see, that you were blind to, that you can see now, or you never thought about it in that way, well, you also have a chance to give that to someone else. So let yourself know, like, share it, and increase the possibility for someone else.